Iceberg explained. These Iceberg videos are sick. It's 2 a.m., but I just can't stop watching these. I love these videos. I wonder if there's an Iceberg video for Mabinogi. Let's see. Oh. Well, time to go make my own. If you don't know what an iceberg image is, it's basically a list of trivia for a piece of media. The top layer is things that most people know, and as you go down deeper, things become lesser known by the majority of people. I made this iceberg myself with some help from the community, but I'm sure that I missed a few things. If there are enough requests, I'll do a second video, but I'm sure you love Mabinogi, I love Mabinogi. Let's just get right into it. One thing that I will use is the potion icon on the bottom left. HP 500 means that I am confident about what I'm talking about. Then as the HP potion gets weaker all the way down to HP 10, I have less of an idea of what it actually means. Mari is now. This is a pretty easy one. At the climax of Generation 1, after defeating Glass, Morrigan tells the player that after perishing, Mari was reborn into Now. Also interesting to note that in the open beta, there were 3 servers, Ruari, Tarlach, and Now. Now was later renamed into the Mari server. This is probably to stop spoilers for the story since it doesn't make sense that only 2 out of 3 of the warriors were turned into server names. Nexon support service. It's been a meme for nearly the past 2 decades that Nexon support service is really slow and loses items a lot. Back then, this is pretty true. But personally, nowadays, whenever I had a problem, support has gotten back to me very quickly. Goddess statue. On any goddess statue, if you turn the camera around at just the right angle, you can see... Yeah, this is not going in the video proper. You guys can take a look at it yourselves. Now's animation. Similarly, I'm not going to put the animation here. Instead, I have this meme I made years ago. Now is the only model in the game to have breast physics. That's it, really. Strange how Now is the only one to do that. Maybe it's to draw people into the game? Not really sure. Second passworded. Up until recently, if you disconnect from the servers and try to log back in, a message will appear telling you to input a new secondary password. This actually does nothing. The reason this happens is that your character is still logged in-game, but your client is disconnected from the server. The server will eventually check to see if a client is connected with the character, and if there isn't, it will lock the character off. This could take a while though. Displacement. Mabinogi is plagued with displacement. Most of the time, this is because your character moves on the client side, while the server side movement is at a different speed than your own character. This causes displacement. Your true position is on the server side. New server Alexina tag. When Alexina was released with the area patch in NA, it received a new tag on it to tell players that it's a new server. However, this tag was left on there for years and years, and apparently was only removed around the server merge. This led to new players moving to Alexina instead of the other 3 servers, and drastically changed how the 4 servers grew their communities. Old combat system. In Generation 16 Season 2, skills were revamped to have no skill loading time, but instead have skill cooldowns. For example, Smash used to have a 2-second load time and no cooldown if you're playing as a human. This patch changed it so that the load time is now instant, but there is now a cooldown of 3 seconds. This marked a significant change in how the game was played. Lorna and Pan. These 2 characters now serve as the tutorial NPCs, but their origin actually dates far back in the game's history. Lorna and Pan were a series of shorts created by Nexon KR, and later dubbed by Nexon NA, that tells the tales of the charming duo of Lorna and Pan. Lorna has her signature loot that she carries around everywhere, while Pan is an incredibly smart, talking black sheep. These were tutorial videos, teaching the viewer how to play the game. There is also an Easter egg of Lorna and Pan in the music room at the Wrath Royal Castle in Terra, where a painting of Lorna and Pan can be seen. Server stereotypes. Okay, let's do this lightning fast. Pre-merge first. Mari is a drama server, Tarlach is dead, Ruari is full of hackers, Alexina is where the noobs go. Post-merge, Now is popping, and now Alexina is a dead server. In the Now. In the Now is a series by the player Tamara, who runs the YouTube channel Mabinogi. The series interviews many different players in the Now server, and is a great way to get to know how the community is. Her channel is linked in the description. Critical cap. As you play Mabinogi, you'll realize that your critical stat can go way above 100%, but you still don't crit every time. While the target's protection stat can reduce your crit chance, the main reason why you don't always crit is because crit rate is capped at 30%. You can increase this cap by getting the Spirit Weapon perk that increases critical cap, or by leveling up your Nelly renown. Mabi tier list streams. Between November 2020 and December 2020, a few Mabinogi Twitch streamers like Way3 and HahaLo420 made tons of different tier lists for random things in Mabinogi. These range from skill tier lists to player ego tier lists to fashion tier lists and many more. It was a fad that drew in a lot of viewers, but has since then died out. Multi-clanning and mods. Multi-clanning is a phrase used to describe a player that opens more than one instance of Mabinogi on their computer at once. In NA, this is normally not possible and is against its terms of service. However, this is possible if the player has certain modifications installed on their computer. This entire conversation is against terms of service and I really don't want to endorse any of this, but if you want to learn more about mods, you should Google it yourself. Lava Cat Robe. When G8 was first released, it introduced fossil restoration. Fossils can be obtained if a player mines sulfur pits or flint rocks. If the player cleans up the fossil well, they have a chance to receive the Lava Cat Robe if they turn it in. It was an extremely prized fashion item back in the day, and many players still reminisce of the Lava Cat Robe craze. Erg. Erg is a mechanic introduced in G21. In short, Erg lets actual weapons level up and become stronger themselves. These levels can give these weapons all sorts of boons such as slower cooldowns, increased defensive stats, increased combo damage, and more. A weapon has a current Erg level and an Erg cap. The Erg cap can be raised if the player attempts to sacrifice certain items to the weapon at a certain success rate. Megumin KR. A popular YouTuber from KR, they are dressed in a Megumin cosplay and mainly use magic skills to clear content. Because magic is a popular talent, many players look to Megumin to find inspiration for their own magic skills. Ping. This can refer to two things. The first is latency. Latency affects how fast or slow your game connects to the server or receives instructions from it. Higher ping means a slower internet connection and vice versa. Ping can also refer to heavy stander, mana deflector, and natural shield. If a target has one of these skills, they will emit a ping noise whenever they take damage to their respective type, take reduced damage, and have no knockdown gauge buildup. Heavy stander activates at a certain rate, while mana deflector and natural shield will always proc. Week-long area update. When G4 through G6 was first implemented in NA, the maintenance took a whole week for it to finish. Normally, big updates only take about an afternoon to finish, but the area update was a big exception. Brionac. If the player awakens their Brionac through Demigod or Shock, Brionac will reduce 3 protection with every hit against a boss monster like Black Dragon, White Dragon, Kraken Rex, etc. This process has many different community names depending on who you talk to. Mario players call it cutting, as in cut through the protection. Tarlak players call it peeling, as in peel off the protection. Ruari players refer to it as Brio, which is short for Brionac, and Alex Kinev players simply just use the name Brionac. Personally, out of all these, Brio makes the most sense, but since I'm from Mari, it's actually cutting, so if you don't agree with me, you can Sabina Blade. February 10th, 2017. A post was put on the Mabinogi subreddit showing that some random player on Ruari received the Saluna Blade. If you don't know, the Saluna Blade is by far the most expensive item in the game, and it would take well over 70 bill in gold to craft it now, thanks to the scarcity of mats. There was no way that a single server could have enough materials to create a Saluna Blade at the time, so players began to investigate. The player base realized that the Saluna Blade had absolutely no blacksmithing bonuses or penalties, so they realized that the Saluna Blade had to be generated by someone at Nexon. Rumors then spread that the player who received the Saluna Blade was friends with the then CM Sabina, which people assumed gave it to the player. Posts on the forums asking about the Saluna Blade were deleted from the forums, angering the community. Some players even spread it onto the Korean forums, spreading the word and awareness of the situation. On February 13th, 2017, Nexon issued a statement, which involved them looking through the logs and finding out that the Saluna Blade was indeed generated by Nexon. Nexon then deleted the Saluna Blade and told the player base to stop sending Nexon threats. On February 23rd, 2017, CM Sabina announced that she was leaving Nexon. Since it was very shortly after the Saluna Blade incident, players have internalized the ordeal as a Sabina Blade, a play on the name Saluna Blade referencing the time when someone at Nexon generated a Saluna Blade for a character in Ruari. Lower decks for refining. Before G17 Season 4, certain ranks of refining required the player to fail creating ingots to rank up the skill. To increase their failure rate, players had to wear heavy armor to lower their dexterity, training refining earlies when they didn't have enough dexterity, or drink a production failure potion. As of G17 Season 4, the training requirements were updated to no longer require failures to advance refining. However, returning players haven't caught on yet, so they still come back with the notion that they still need low dex to train refining. Eternal. This is the first vocalized version of Mabinogi's main theme, an old story from Grandma. The first one that appeared was sung by Rie Tanaka, which you might know now as the voice actor for Lisa in Genshin Impact. This version of the song was apparently used for a Japanese Mabinogi commercial, but I can't find it. Later on, a Hatsune Miku cover of Eternal came out with the Hatsune Miku crossover event. Enchant bridges. From rank 9 onwards, enchants that don't have enchant rank enabled regardless of limit have to be stepped up to enchant them on. For instance, if you want to enchant a rank 8 enchant on an item, you first need to enchant a rank A enchant onto it, then a rank 9 enchant to override it. These enchants that help bridge the gap are referred to as enchant bridging or bridges. Camping penalty. If the player kills multiple things in the field in succession, they will notice that their EXP gain has been reduced due to a camping penalty. Hunting in one place over and over again will increase this penalty. EXP gain and drop rates are reduced while the camping penalty is still in effect, and will slowly disappear if the player leaves combat for a while. If the player has premium service or VIP, they will not be affected by camping penalty at all. Vindictus is a prequel to Mabinogi. I don't know anything about Vindictus' lore, but what I do know is that the game takes place a few hundred years before the events of Mabinogi. I also know that in Vindictus, there are a few cameo NPC appearances like Fergus. I'm sure someone in the comments can tell me more. Pet spam. This started when Crystal Deers were first introduced into the game. Crystal Deers were the first pets to have a summon effect. The summon effect did a small amount of damage to enemies nearby and stunned them for a bit as though they got hit. As pets started to get stronger and stronger, many endgame players now rely on pet spam to manage aggro, especially in endgame content like tech missions. Cousins. Cousins is just another term for alts. Hey, their cousins are just so helpful that they'll give them all of the rewards in the chest at the end of the dungeon. Cyber Joel. Cyber Joel is a longtime player on all servers that is known for making a bunch of bugle messages. If you want to learn more about Cyber Joel, check out his In the Now interview, linked in the description. Using WASD during charge. If you use charge, you can actually still move around if you use the movement keys while running around with charge. It's actually kinda neat, it lets you reposition and stuff. Lance Charge Cancel. For a while, if you use Lance Charge, you can hit the keyboard action button while moving towards the target to cancel the attack early, and allow you to position yourself faster. This was a very useful tactic for increasing DPS, but has since then been patched out. Housing Flyers. Placards, previously known as housing flyers, are generated when the player visits the housing board and chucks out a flyer. Moving to the seller's shop will move the character to the housing channel and create a return coupon. This return coupon remembers the location that the player entered the housing channel from and will teleport them back to that spot. The player can use this to their advantage. If they use the flyer in a hard to reach spot like another world, they can save the return coupon for a different time by exiting the housing channel through the normal exit. Then, if the player returns to the housing district and uses that return coupon, they will teleport back to the hard to reach area. This is no longer viable because return coupons now have a 3-hour time limit on them. Black Robing. An exploit was discovered in the early days of Mabinogi that involved the hacking program Pake. I'm going to spare you the details, but basically it involved deleting a character's hair, thus invalidating the character data. On the login screen, if the character data is invalid, they will appear as a black robe with no face. They can't even log in. This is why it was known as black robing. I personally wasn't playing during this time, but apparently this issue lasted for at least a week and was one of the primary reasons why Mabinogi EU shut down. Speaking of that, EU server shut down. Mabinogi once had an EU server for the EU players. However, due to the immense amount of hacking on the EU server and the low amounts of profit and player base growth, it shut down a couple years after it opened. NA then lifted its EU IP restrictions so that anyone in EU can play NA Mabinogi. Random Moongates. In the old days, moongates operated very differently than they do now. Not only can you only use moongates at nighttime, hence the name Moongate, they teleported you only to a set location every night. This led to a lot of waiting and frustration since moongates would only let players teleport to CO Island a few times a day to finish their generations, and would force players to take a long time traveling between destinations. This was changed in a future patch to the system it is now, allowing players to fast travel to places that they have visited. If you want to see what the old moongate system was, you can log in on a pet and try it out, since it wasn't changed for them. Irie. Before G13, a tutorial weapon was given to all new players. This was a spirit weapon, but it wasn't really a spirit weapon. The player could talk to Irie using the spirit chat button to hear about the tips and tricks how to play Mabinogi. The weapon can also be repaired at the blacksmith, which normal spirit weapons can't do at the time. Upon reaching total level 26, the player can complete a quest that will remove Irie from their inventory. As of G13, the tutorial was completely revamped and players would no longer receive Irie. Sharp Mind. Sharp Mind was a skill that players had that allowed them to see what skills the enemy monster was using. If Sharp Mind succeeds, it looks like what it does now. It shows the player what the enemy monster is using. If it fails, it has an X icon over the enemy, indicating that the player can't read the skill. As of G16 Season 2, the Dynamic Combat update, Sharp Mind has been removed from the game. Now, players have a version of Sharp Mind that has a 100% success rate for reading skills that the enemies are using. The servers moved from LA to Oregon. Around April 2019, Nexon changed their server hosting service from somewhere in LA to Oregon, since they're now using Amazon Web Services. Now, the Mabinogi servers are located there, resulting in some latency changes for most players. Devil's Cry. A skill exclusive to Bone Dragons. This skill has unique properties. It can knock blinkers out of the sky, and it draws aggro. I made a whole video about Devil's Cry, you should go check it out on the top right corner. Mabinogi 2 was cancelled. Mabinogi 2 Arena was a game in development by Nexon and DevCat. It was a Diablo-style game complete with action combat and customizable characters. It doesn't resemble Mabinogi at all, really. In January 2014, DevCat announced that development of Mabinogi 2 Arena was cancelled. Iframes. Iframes is a term taken from fighting games, but it basically refers to a period of invincibility that an object has. I stands for invincibility, and a frame refers to the individual image that appears on the screen. For example, Focused Fist gives a player a period of invincibility as they are using it. I have honestly no idea why people have adopted iframes in the Mabinogi, since most of the timers are not based on frames but on real time, but I guess that the term is easy for most players to understand. Mysterious Reforging Tools. Mysterious Reforging Tools are overseas reforges that are purchasable for 20,000 ducats from their commerce imp. There are only 3 Mysterious Reforging Tools available per player per real world day. These reforges are significantly weaker than fine reforging tools, since they can't roll good reforging lines and have a lower chance to rank up items. However, they're free, I guess? From what I hear, people only use these to rank up, and even then you're probably better off buying premium reforges or fine reforging tools to rank up items. Small tangent, but people keep talking about how much they want these reforging tools in NA, but honestly, it's just a band-aid fix for the issue. People are still going to buy fine reforging tools, people are still going to do the events to get the free ones. It's just going to shift the blame to the bigger issue at hand, which is how low the rates are in general. But hey, that's just me. Missing generations. In the chapter info button, the player might realize that there are 3 missing generations from the menu, G4, G5, and G6. These were the Rano, Philia, and Vales areas respectively. In KR, these were released one update at a time and were released with their respective names. In NA, this was released as one big update, the area update. G20 S2 CN server leak. Around the beginning of 2019, the server files for G20 Season 2 were leaked in China. These files included drop rates, loot functions, types of enemies, and more. A player by the name of Ridian took their time to look through the server files and extract some drop rate data, such as a chance to get a ruptured black metal from Albi Events hard mode. Most of the item drop rates should generally stay the same from China to NA, so it's safe to assume that the drop rate table is accurate. You can find that link in the description below. Black-haired elves. In the lore, black-haired elves are considered to be omens of doom. Atrada, the black-haired elf in Philia, was almost killed as a child because of her black hair, but was spared by Castania because Castania realized that Atrada will have an important role to play in the future. Atrada's memories of her traumatic experience were wiped. Because of the lore, militant elves could not choose to have black hair for the longest time. It wasn't until the New Beginnings update where elf players could finally customize their character to have black hair. Mabinogi Mobile. There are 2 Mabinogi mobile games that one might be referring to. One is the official Mabinogi mobile game in development by Nexon and DevCat, and is slated to come out in Korea sometime in 2021. There's also this knockoff version of Mabinogi from China that uses stolen assets from the main game. It shut down on May 15, 2020, presumably by Nexon who bought the game to shut it down. The Now server was made using the Mari server. If 3 or more players are in a party, and the party leader leaves the party, generally what happens is that the oldest player becomes the party leader. This is because the game prioritizes the character with the lowest player ID to become the next party leader. Player IDs were generated by counting up, which means that the newest player obviously gets the highest player ID. However, the player IDs were not unique per server. A Mari character could have the same player ID as the Tarlat character. When the server merge happened, because characters cannot have the same player ID, Nexon chose to stitch all of the character data onto the Mari server, which means taking each individual character from the Tarlac and Mirari servers and assigning them new player IDs to put them on top of the Mari characters. This is why when an old Tarlac character and a newer Mari character made pre-merge join a party, then the party leader leaves, the game will prioritize the Mari character to become the next party leader, and not the Tarlac character. Out of bounds. Some places like Tier have a weak spot in the geometry that allows players to go out of bounds and into the wild fields. Nothing is really here, and there's an even bigger box that stops players from moving too far out of the terrain, but it's pretty interesting and fun. Giant models were changed. In Korea, giants used to look like the ones in the image on the left. There were also no female giants back then. This is why Kirin has a unique model. 67th Floor. This is a limited time crossover exclusive enchant from the Sword Art Online Gachapon. The name comes from the SAO period between floors 67th and 74, where nobody died in any boss fights. In Mabinogi, this is a suffix enchant with 30 to 40 max damage and 3 piercing. For a long time, this was the only two-handed weapon enchant that had 3 piercing on it. Since it is a limited time crossover enchant, it's unlikely that it's ever to return. Tons and Atrada. In the past, Tons was in the giant conquest for Canis. However, the giants were defeated and Tons eventually fell unconscious in the desert. The elf healer Atrada found Tons before he was about to die, rescuing him even though the giants and elves had a bitter rivalry. The two fell in love with each other despite being extremely taboo. Mabingo. Nobody has any clue where this phrase came from, but it seemed to originate from the Mari server. It's just a phrase that people use when they're mad about Mabinogi, but people use it whenever now. Deleted guilds. There were many randomly deleted guilds in Mabinogi's time. Some are legit, like the guild Hookers, which was deleted for obvious reasons. However, I'm going to talk about the Skill Guild. The Skill Guild was an Alexina guild that was a guardian guild in Dumbarton. However, due to unknown reasons, the guild mysteriously vanished without any input from the guild leader. People suspect that this had to do with foul play from a hacker with Paik, but nobody knows for sure. Magic is the most popular talent in Korea. Recently, in a director's roadmap in Korea, they mentioned that they were doing a talent revamp in May 2021. In this blurb, they mentioned that the top 5 talents in Korea are Chains, Magic, Archery, Fighter, and Close Combat. We don't know if it's exactly in the order from most popular to least popular, but we do know that Magic is extremely popular. This is probably because new players gravitate towards Magic due to the wizard fantasy, and that it's a much better option for magic damage between it and no Erg Alchemy. Note Juice Officer here to join Juice. This is a joke by the players of the Juice Guild and now to troll the current Juice Officer by telling players to note them to join Juice, since Juice is the current guardian guild with the Barton. This gets spammed across Twitch streams and bugles in game. I have no idea where this came from, but it's pretty funny. Reforged rates are hidden. Players might notice that while Gachapon rates are visible to any player that wants to read it, reforging tools have hidden rates to the players. This is legal in Korea since it falls under a loophole, I think, but the KR players got super angry at Nexon KR for keeping the reforging rates hidden. They even sent an entire bus or truck full of angry messages to the Nexon KR headquarters. Recently, Nexon KR released raids on the potential cubes in MapleStory, and hopefully Mabinogi will follow next, but I don't know. Guild Battle. There are 2 versions of the Guild Battle. One is the old Guild Battle where players just killed each other until the timer was up, and then there's the current Guild Battle, which involves people capturing flags. The winner of the current Guild Battle will become the Guardian Guild for either Terror or Dumbarton for the week, depending on where they signed up to the battle at. If you want to see what the Guild Battle looks now, check the description for a video. Healing enemies in PvP. If you request a duel, or are already in another duel with another player, the healing skill will not work normally. You can heal enemies in duels instead. I have no idea why this works, but it does. Mabinogi only runs on one CPU core. Back in the day, some developers anticipated that the CPUs would evolve into having one singular better core rather than utilizing multiple cores. So they developed their programs based on that one core. Mabinogi is one of those games that fell into this trap. The infamously hard to run game Crisis is similar to Mabinogi in this regard in that it also has poor multi-core utilization. This is why CPUs with generally good single cores run Mabinogi very well, and CPUs with low rated single cores suck running Mabinogi. 8+ man Pika. Back in the day, some players decided that it would be really fun to just totally rush down Pika Dungeon by all dropping the same item to get more than 8 players in a single run. Not everyone will get a chest, but it was a fun thing to do back in the day when Pika was considered the endgame content. Paik. Paik is a packet editor for Mabinogi. This is an actual hacking program which is separate from modding. This allowed players to hack and do things that they are never supposed to do, like delete people's hairs, which black robes them, or kill NPCs that aren't meant to be killed. Please do not use Pig, it ruins the game for everyone. Raid sniping. Raid sniping is a term for when a player or a group of players kill a raid boss without allowing the rest of the players to get there first. While technically within the game's rules, raid sniping is considered extremely disrespectful and taboo in the community. Crab bubbles can cancel skill animations. For skills that have long execution times like Glyph Evocation, the player can use a crab pet and use the bubble skill to cancel the animation and free the player a little earlier. I don't find it particularly useful, but it's interesting. Banned for having too much gold in the housing channel. During the era of hackers, there was a ton of duplicated checks running amok. These duped checks were used to buy expensive things from the housing channel. If a player was detected to have a ton of duplicated gold in their house, next one's blanket ban will get them banned for having the gold in their possession, regardless if they knew about it or not. No friends list cap. Before, players could add as many friends as they want to their friends list. Then, in some unknown patch, the friends list was capped at 200, forcing players to delete people off their friends list so they can add different players to their friends list. Summoner talent. The summoner talent is referring to this joke image here. It poked fun at players that spams pet summon effects. It also said that it is the third strongest hidden talent in the game, the first being the Reforge Master and the second being the Gachapon Gambler. It was also paired along this joke talent here, the Tag-Along. This was a joke about the players that would only use supporting skills like Shadowbind or Battlefield Overture. Mabi Pro. Mabi Pro is a private server using the leaked server files from G13. It has the old combat system from the time and features some custom content. Black Beach Disaster. I think this is referring to G16 when Keyhole claimed that the Soul Stream was responsible for destroying Scathatch Beach. Honestly, don't know too much about this, so if anyone has any more information about this, let me know in the comments. Arm Leg. In August 19th, 2016, a player from the Mari server that goes by the name of Arm Leg used a time bomb freeze exploit to take down the Mabinogi servers. For an entire day, the servers were attacked by these time bombs and took Mabinogi down for at least 9 hours. Nexon then banned Arm Leg and compensated for this downtime with a Double Rainbow event, but please don't crash your servers and hope for a Double Rainbow event, it's not going to work again. Elves had a cancelled rework. This is a rumor spread around by the community that Elves did in fact have a rework planned, just like Giants, but was cancelled in development. The current director says that they're looking into Elves now, but we have no idea what's happening behind the curtains. Memory Tower. The Memory Tower was an item used by the Elves to store their memories. If an elf were to stray too far away from the memory tower, they are said to lose their memories. The elf chiefs, like Castellana, can manipulate the memory tower to delete memories or hide memories at will. However, Militian elves and some other elves like Ivana, Andreas, and Granite are unaffected by the memory tower. The memory tower was removed at some point between G8 and Saga 1, after the curse in G8 was destroyed and elves no longer relied on the memory tower. Bebin and Manus. For the NA localization, Bebin and Manus had their models and art changed. You can see what they look like in overseas servers over here, and what they look like in NA over here. Step 29. Step 29 is a well-known figure in the modding community. He's also a pretty infamous troll. He was permabanned from Mabinogi, and there was a period of time where mentioning Step 29 in front of GMs or CMs will get you banned for a few days. Elves turn into ghosts. If an elf was affected by the curse of the ancient Inranid, they will eventually transform into a hostile desert ghost. Yikes. Original Pleone developers. From my understanding, the Pleone engine is a game engine specifically designed for Mabinogi. Due to the complexity around creating a game engine in-house, it became incredibly difficult to modify and upgrade over time. Rumor has it that the developers that originally worked on the Pleone engine no longer work at Nexon, and that's why it's becoming increasingly hard to optimize the engine to work with current computers and hard to implement new content in the game. Slow and fast channels. You might notice that some players recommend to do content on certain channels. There are pairs of channels that share a server that you connect to. For example, on Now, Channel 1 and Channel 2 share a server, Channel 3 and Channel 4 share one, and so on. Logically, this means that the more populated channels have more people connected to them, and so it makes a server a little bit slower. The effects of this show in enemy AI. Slower channels have slower AI and don't react as quickly. However, sometimes the AI gets stuck doing certain skills, most notably in purification missions. Similarly, less populated channels like Now Channel 5 and Channel 6 have less people, so naturally they're faster. Enemy AI doesn't get stuck. However, some content is a little bit harder to run if the AI is fast, like Fethfiata. Shingeki no Danny X. This was a meme video about the Mari player Danny X. It featured a bunch of images related to Danny X with the song Guren no Yumiya from Attack on Titan. Long live the legend. Mabinogi is a speed dating game. This is a joke about the amount of real relationships that have started because of individuals connected through Mabinogi. Many relationships have started and ended through this game. It's really interesting to see and think about. Mabinogi is a web browser. This is supposedly another joke referencing Mabinogi's heavy reliance on the now defunct Windows Explorer, but it still uses it because, old game. There might be actual evidence to this though. One thing that I've heard was that the Pleon engine is actually an emulator running Mabinogi, but I don't have any sources or evidence to back up this claim yet. If you know something, let me know. Food went to prison due to tax fraud. God, this is so stupid. This is an inside joke by the people in the Lost Guild from now. Food is a guild leader of Lost. One day he went on vacation for a period of time, with people speculating where he went. Some people started to spread a stupid rumor that Food was actually in prison because he committed tax fraud, and that's how the joke started and got spread. That's it. Wood dummies. There were a lot of random wood dummies scattered around Mabinogi, mainly in the Dumbarton, Dugat Isle, and Tier areas. You can hit this like any other prop. Why they're there, I have no idea. Magnum Shot Splash. I think back then Magnum Shot Splash angle was always fixed towards north or south. I don't know because it didn't work when I tried it recently. I think they fixed it recently because somehow I remember that I was shooting Magnum Shot and the splash angle was facing my direction, but I don't know for sure. Open Beta Login Theme. During Mabinogi's Open Beta, this was the song that played in the login screen. It's pretty cool. I like it. Mabinogi Alpha. In Camex 2002, a Korean trade show, DevCat and Nexon unveiled their first ever trailer for Mabinogi, which is this trailer right here. God, this trailer looks so old. The animations are so different from what they are now. If you want to check out the full video yourself, I will leave the video in the description. Blacksmithing is rigged. The blacksmithing minigame is actually rigged, so that it's impossible to guarantee a perfect score on any item. It involves some complex calculation, depending on how far your cursor is from the pixel you need to hit, but the issue is that the game will never ever let you hit that exact pixel, so your minimum quality floor will never be 100 out of 100. If you want to know more, check out this Reddit post with Ridian in the description, or check out the Mabinogi wiki page on blacksmithing. Perfume making. This is a remove skill from KR. It allowed players to make perfume. I think you have to train it by eating it for some reason. I'm not really sure what it does, but some players speculate that this skill eventually became part of the pet trainer talent, with the fencing skills using perfume, created by Fincrafting. Camera Girl. In Mabinogi's Korean beta, the GMs used a character with a UFO hat and a handycam set to livestream the game to those who were not part of the beta test. They were a character that used the most basic features, but the Camera Girl was the only character that had the handycam set and the UFO hat. NA never had something like this, so the Camera Girl never actually appeared in NA. There's one sign in the Dumbarton map that mentions Camera Girl, but that's all that's left of her in NA. Petty IRL thread. There is some really petty drama that happens in Mabinogi. One of these instances is on the IRL picture thread on the forums. I personally wasn't around for this time, but I know that some relationships failed and some leaked scandalous images of other players were posted onto the IRL thread. Holy crap guys, I hope this doesn't happen anymore because this can actually ruin someone's life forever. Treasure Hunters concept art. Early on during the Dream Project promotional video, there were some early versions of the Culinary Artist and Treasure Hunters shown. Culinary Artist looks very similar to the final version, but the Treasure Hunter is completely different. Treasure Hunter was originally a female elf. Treasure Hunter was probably an elf early on to match a Culinary Artist, who was a giant. Treasure Hunter eventually became a male elf later in development, shown in this concept art, before finally settling on the human male design. Wow, you made it to the end of the video. This was the biggest video project I have ever done, so I had to do a lot of learning along the way. I hope that you learned something from the Mabinogi Iceberg. Be sure to like and subscribe for future content. If you're new here, I mainly post guides and content videos about me playing endgame Mabinogi content. It's still a really fun game after all these years. Anyways, that's it for this Mabinogi Iceberg. Thanks for watching.